A British company once offered its customers the chance to win 1 year of free electricity. That'd be worth roughly £1,000 on average. When they did that, 67,000 people entered. Later, that same company offered the customers a chance to win a penguin-shaped nightlight. And that was about worth £15. And more than 360,000 people entered. The penguin generated over 5 times as many entries for a fraction of the monetary value. Now, one customer was even offered £200 as a refund for their bill, and they turned it down because they'd rather have the penguin. That does not make sense. But it worked. And that is the distinction where alchemy lives. Now, welcome back to our series covering Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. Today, we are discussing 3 connected ideas. 1, context is everything. 2, the opposite of a good idea can be another good idea. And the difference between nonsense and what Sutherland calls nonsense. The central idea is simple. Something can be difficult to explain logically and still produce an extraordinary result. Now, when evaluating an idea, we tend to ask whether it makes sense. But that only gives us half of the information we need. An idea can make sense and work, and that's conventional success. An idea can make sense and fail. That's a logical failure. An idea can make no sense at all and fail. That's nonsense. But an idea can make no logical sense and work extremely well. And that is alchemy. Most corporations spend nearly all of their time searching for ideas that make sense and advance. And that is not necessarily because those ideas are more likely to work. It's because those decisions are easier to defend if they fail. Because no one gets fired by making a logical decision. If you followed the data, copied an industry best practice, and selected the option approved by the committee, you can explain yourself afterwards. But if the decision failed and you look responsible while making it, you're going to be out on the street. The strange idea creates a different problem. Before it works, somebody has to take responsibility for something that cannot easily be justified. And that requires creativity. It requires proximity to the business and a tolerance for risk. Conventional logic encourages us to believe that every problem has one correct answer. And in physics, the opposite of a correct answer is generally incorrect. Psychology is different. I'll give you an example. If you're running a business that says everyone is welcome here, it can be a good message because it creates accessibility. Conversely, you could create a message that says this is not for everyone, which is good because it creates simultaneously, you could say thousands of people and leverage social proof. Conversely, you could say only a small group of people knows about us, and that can work because it creates scarcity and discovery. Neither message is universally correct. Context determines which meaning the customer receives. Because that means that a good idea does not eliminate every competing idea. Its opposite may create value through an entirely different psychological mechanism. Which brings us back to the penguin. Choosing a £15 nightlight instead of a prize worth more than £1,000 appears to be irrational. We assume people are comparing financial value. But people typically are not simply comparing numbers. The larger prize is abstract. It's another adjustment on the electricity bill. You can't see it, you can't touch it. The penguin, it's cute, it's tangible, it's unusual, and it's emotionally interesting. People can picture it, and they can talk about it, and they could imagine giving it to somebody. Sutherland calls this nonsense, with a hyphen in between. Nonsense is something that has no value and does not work. Non-sense is something that, through a narrow logical framework, being used to evaluate it. But it may make perfect sense through psychology, emotion, context, or human behavior. The penguin was not more valuable financially. It was more motivating psychologically. And this is why boardrooms reject alchemy. Alchemy is typically unwelcome in most boardrooms because boardrooms are filled with investors or representatives of investors who are removed from the daily reality of the business. They often lack the proximity, the vision, the creativity necessary to recognize an unusual opportunity. An idea must be converted into numbers, projections, and a rational explanation before it can receive approval. And by the time it survives that process, much of its originality has been removed. The boardroom does not always select the idea that is most likely to work. It often selects the idea that is the easiest to explain when it fails. Gaining opportunity, it's about minimizing risk. Small businesses therefore have an advantage because the owner is closer to the customer and they understand the culture. They can notice something unusual, test it on a small scale, and see what happens without first convincing 20 people who do not understand the business. I'm going to just put in a shameless plug here because you all know, if you've been following this channel, I love Disney parks. I love the Disney company, but I really do love Disney parks and Imagineering. Disney just went through a huge round of layoffs, and they'll probably go through several more as things are changing in the parks. But if you think about it from a boardroom level, the economy is not great. There's advancements in technology that's messing everything up. We have to make the ends meet. Therefore, the logic says, get rid of some people. Just lay them off out of the parks so we can make things work on paper. However, if you've been to Disney parks, and you've been to Disney parks back in the golden ages, you'd understand something. That sometimes the best part about going to the parks is not necessarily being attended to left and right. Sometimes it's striking up conversation with a cast member. Sometimes it's noticing the little Mickeys that they make out of leaves when they fall. Sometimes it's the watching a child, ideally your child, don't be weird, stepping into a little box that they made on the floor and having the cast members cheer for them while they're in the box. It's those little things that are magical. Those little pieces of alchemy that make the experience so captivating and make memories that you cannot explain to a company that is only worried about the bottom line. And that's what gives those small companies, the people who are closest to the action, the opportunity to make big differences. Now, let's talk about CrossFit. Consider 3 opposing decisions that a CrossFit gym could make. You could talk about exclusivity versus accessibility. This gym is for everyone. It can reduce intimidation. Or you can say, this gym is specifically for women, people between 50 and 70, and you will make the right customer feel uniquely understood. You could say, this is going to be the hardest hour of your day and attract people who are looking for a challenge. You could say, you don't need to be that fit before you begin to attract people who need reassurance. You could make it a pricing thing, where on the high end, you can communicate that you have coaching and attention and commitment. On the low end, it could say, hey, you know what, free consultation and inexpensive introductory offer to reduce the uncertainty and make the first step easier. All 6 approaches can work. The question is not which one is universally correct. The question is, which meaning fits your customer, your positioning, and your intent? Think outside the box. And that's going to require creativity and risk tolerance. You have to accept that some experiments are going to fail. But refusing to test anything that cannot be explained in advance guarantees that something your competitor is already doing. Strange ideas that fail are nonsense. But a strange idea that works, that's alchemy. And sometimes may be another very good idea. Now, if all that sounds valuable, you like this, and you want to follow the channel so we can continue the alchemy series, I would love for you to hit the follow button, drop a like, send us a message, especially if you need help identifying, testing, or applying unconventional ideas inside your CrossFit gym. Give us a call. Our call is free. We'll give you some insights for sure. We will help you find opportunities that conventional logic may be hiding from you. We will talk about that more in the rest of this series. But for now, I'm Colin Charles. This is Enoch, and we will see you in the next episode.